Welcome to the geographical center of Germany, the state of Thuringia, and the village of Oberhof, tucked in the forest amongst the mountains, the site of this week's stop on the Eberspeche FIL Luge World Cup. Hi everyone, I'm Tim Singer. We're getting set for run number one of the doubles competition. Colder temperatures than earlier today. The mercury reading 23 degrees with a 26-degree ice temperature at the moment as we view the giant Panorama Hotel in the background. Here's a look at this course, not considered the fastest in the world, but one of the more technical. And to tell us a little bit more about that in today's competition, I'm pleased to introduce from Team USA, Olympian and World Championship medalist, Emily Sweeney. Welcome back, Emily.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. It's good to be back. So, yes, for the doubles competition today, they have a little bit of a longer start than the men did earlier on, but then it's right into the same quick curve combinations. Everything gets set up by curve 8 right there, but then it's the very important 9, 10, 11 combo here. It sets you up into your 12, 13, which is where we saw a lot of mistakes earlier on today, right into this straightaway here. But don't give up yet, because this final Kreisel here, we found so much time. A lot of sleds gave away time right in the last curve.
Earlier today in the men's competition, we saw the track record fall several times on this newly renovated course. Yesterday, the doubles track record fell. The Canadians set that record en route to their win in the Nations Cup competition, and that Canadian team of Tristan Walker and Justin Smith will be the 12th to go out of the 24 in today's competition. After they go down, all of the rest of the seeded group will make their way up to the start, down to the finish. The Latvians, coming off of their victory last week on their home track in Sigulda, will be the final team to go. The Austrians, Stoy and Kohler, are leading the World Cup standings. So sit back, get ready for some exciting action. Double the sliders, double the fun here in the doubles competition. First up, a pair of teenagers from the Ukraine, competing for just the second time ever on the World Cup. Vadim Mikyevich and Bohdan Babura. The top man, Mikyevich, 16, and the bottom man, just 15 years old.
Definitely a young team here. Really, they're just looking for some solid performances as they're building on their experience on the World Cup tour.
Well, we've said it a lot over the last couple of weeks, and it bears repeating, especially right now, that many of the young athletes are taking part in the World Cup this year simply because due to the pandemic, there is no Junior World Cup.
Whoa.
And they're sliding their way on the upper part of this track.
That they are. That's not a common mistake we see on this track. So I wonder if they have enough edge going on. And they're over off of 11, just like that.
First crash we have seen this weekend in any competition. At least, the men earlier today in doubles. Now they do a nice recovery to get back onto the sled. Will they get a finish time? I think they will, right?
I think they will. It is a little bit of an uphill through the Kreisel here, but they have that nice straightaway to gain some speed. So they will be back for a second run.
Mikyevich and Babura. And as I mentioned, first crash today, Emily, but there actually were quite a few crashes during training, all three disciplines.
There were. I mean, like you said, it's not the fastest track, but it is quite technical. The transitions are really tight. They just came up off the end of 11 there, and there's nowhere to go but over. But with these tight transitions, it's very easy to get behind and then have everything catch up with you, and it's just the physics of the sport.
Well, early going here, run number one out of two in the doubles luge competition. If you have insights, questions, or comments, by all means, get in touch with us on Twitter at Luge Announcer. One word, at Luge Announcer, and then by email, if you want to go that route, luge.announcer@gmail.com. Our next competitors from Romania, Trelea and Mochka. And there's an interesting quote about that speed. Emily, comes from a former teammate of yours, I believe, Dan Joy, who says Oberhof is not known for its speed, but rather its technical design. But for the sliders, it feels as if they're going 80 miles per hour.
I can see that because, I mean, if you compare it to a track like Park City, Utah, Park City has much higher speeds, but the curves are so much longer and more open that it doesn't feel as if you're going very fast. So it probably feels like you're going the same speed, even though there's probably a 10 mile per hour difference.
Romanians with a huge advantage over Ukraine here, but they're not without their issues as well.
Another
and they go
flip.
over.
Carbon copy right off the end of 11. It's a very common issue here, especially with doubles. Their center of gravity is that much higher. So it's just, if they're not online there, it's very easy to just tip off the end.
Well, we've learned that time and time again on any track. It's an entirely different proposition, singles and doubles. Winterberg is a great example of that, where it's always an adventure on the lower labyrinth down there. And we have seen virtually every team, including the top teams in doubles, crash this year. Agert, Benniken have had crashes, Vendel and Alt, and that you can't say that about the Geisenbergers and Locks of the world.
Right, no, that's a great point. I think when you bring in two people on one sled, there's so many variables going on, but I think the biggest one is that center of gravity. It's just that much easier to tip over. And from everyone, from if this is your first World Cup versus if you're a seasoned veteran like some of the others we've seen. But this sled in particular just had way too much of a loop going in through 11 and just came out very early, back up on the end and over.
I think that was a German media person filling in the role of a Ukrainian coach there. Now Hoy and Lekiewicz, they're in their third season on the World Cup. Also from the Ukraine. They're the older Ukrainian team, and they're how old? 21 and 18. Actually,
everything is relative.
There are 3 teams from Ukraine, so they're kind of keeping up with the big boys. You got 3 from Germany, not 3 from Russia this time around, just 2. But 3 from Italy and 3 from Ukraine.
Right, the new Russian team did not qualify from the Nations Cup,
That's
so
right.
There's only 2 representing them today. But really, I've been very impressed with the Ukrainian program this year. I think we've seen a lot more consistency out of the athletes in World Cups, and that's huge.
Well, a little bit of an adventure across the finish, but Hoy and Lekiewicz take a big lead as they kept it on the ice, which the first 2 teams didn't do. Yeah, Ukraine with a couple of podiums a few weeks ago in men's singles in the Nations Cup competition.
Right, and moving into World Cups as well, just the consistency in the runs, that's something I've never seen from Ukraine, at least in the last 10 years. So it's been really great to see those improvements, and that's where it has to begin. That's where it starts, and then they can start the building blocks on top of that.
Czech Republic, Filip Badejek, Zdednek Pekchny. Also a young team. They competed last year at the World Championships with an 18th place result. They finished twice in the top 10 at the Junior Worlds.
Right, they gave a little bit of time away in the start in Nations Cup. We'll see if they can smooth that out. Here, the start curve here is included in the start time, so it's really important that you have a nice level line and not a lot of up and down movements through start curve.
Start ramp a lot flatter than what we saw earlier with the men's competition, and those 7 paddles by these 2 triple that, more than triple that of most of the men earlier today.
Another great point. Yes, it's a whole different ball game. But a big, almost overcorrection coming out of 13. They got it under control, but there's so much time lost in a mistake like that.
A couple of times now, Emily, you've referred to center of gravity being much more difficult in doubles. Where exactly is that center of gravity, and how does it differ from singles?
So with I don't know exactly how to explain where but you're stacking two people right on top of each other. So whereas a singles athlete, it would be more in the middle of their body. Now with doubles, I mean, look at the front of their sled, how high up that is. That's to accommodate for all the weight that they have to carry and the size. So it's probably a difference of 6 inches, which is significant when we're going at the speeds and the angles that we're going down this track.
All right, the Eastern European parade continues with our third and final of the Ukrainian sleds among the first 5 here in the competition, Igor Shtakov and Andrei Lisetsky. They're ranked number 17 in this year's World Cup standings, with every week results right up there around that mark: 15th, 14th, 17th, 14th, 17th, 19th, and 18th. That's consistent, if nothing else.
Consistent, and that looks like a great start curve. It's the best one we've seen so far today. So they're off to a good start.
Doubles luge was once not gender specific. It could have been men, it could have been women, it could have been mixed, but now they've split it up, and next year women's doubles will debut on the World Cup.
It's going to be exciting to see how everything shakes out, what the schedule looks like, how many athletes there's going to be on tour and competing in that discipline. I think a lot of people are interested to see how this goes.
41.855, still 7/10 or more of a second better, or I should say slower than the track record set yesterday. We do expect we will see track records again in this morning's competition. At least that's what my spies are telling me in Oberhof this morning.
I think that's fair to say. And overall, this was a great run. It's the cleanest run we've seen so far, so it's nice to see them out in the lead, and I look forward to more clean runs to come. We're off to a bit of a rough start.
Yin Young Park and Young Myung Cho are two-time Olympians, including a top 10 performance on their home track in Pyeongchang at the 2018 Games. Their best result this year, 12th place in Winterberg. Now, Emily, next week's race, which you will be rejoining the tour for, is scheduled in Innsbruck, Austria, but that was originally set to be the return to Pyeongchang for the World Cup. And I'm anxious to know what you're feeling. Have you been back there since, quote unquote, the accident?
I have not. The World Cup has not returned since the Olympics. So I was looking forward to, I mean, it was going to be a huge challenge for me to return back to this team's home track there. Obviously, my last run was pretty traumatic, and so I was looking forward to getting back there this year, knowing that it's on the schedule for next year, because I don't want to return right before the Olympics, because I know there's going to be a lot to unpack. But I think that just may be the reality that we're living in.
Certainly is, as we see the Koreans move into the lead by a mere 0.004 of a second. And a lot of little taps and skids on their way down. Nothing major, though.
Right, a lot of bobbling, a lot of extra bobbling. We'll see. There's a lot more opportunity to see that kind of top man shaking back and forth off of each transition. And that's what we want to see avoid, especially right there. They just came back up on the end of 11, just a little bit too much. Korea
out in front in the early going here, as number 7 represents the 7th starter here in run number 1, Vasily Zhitlan and Darius Serban from Romania. 2 Romanians. We saw 2 men compete earlier for Romania. They're only traveling with 1 woman this year, the senior member of the tour, Raluca Stramaturarou. So we anticipate that Romania will be able to fit together a relay team moving forward. There's no relay this weekend.
Right, they're a little long off of 6 and had a little bump going into 7, which doesn't have them to give them the best setup for the labyrinth here, but they're still in the green. This is a sliding hub for the nation of Germany in all 3 sports.
They don't compete in bobsled here, but they produce a lot of great bobsled drivers, along with the great luge champions. 41.720 for the Romanians. And yeah, I was actually mistaken earlier. I was mistaken that person for a media person from Germany, but that indeed is a Romanian coach.
Oh, right. So the Romanian jackets this year look very similar to the German jackets.
Maybe they think that'll make them go faster, right?
I don't know. We don't get to choose what our jackets look like, so whatever we're given, we have to wear. And but it is confusing to see the Romanians versus the Germans at the track this year.
24 teams in today's competition, and this is the first of the 3 from Latvia. And Emily, you got to believe that Martins Bots and Roberts Pluma are still riding a bit of a high.
Absolutely. Your first podium. Their first podium was last week on their home track, and that's such a great feeling. I mean, I don't know. When I look back on all my podiums, the first one was definitely extra special.
Well, when you consider that only 7 doubles teams have earned any podium this year, and none of them from Canada, none of them from Italy, actually one from Italy, none from the USA, and I don't think any from Russia, so it's great company for them to be in.
It absolutely is, and they're having a pretty good run so far. They're keeping it very low in 12. It's going to build a little bit of extra pressure on the end of 13, and they recover well, but man, that's a stressful position to put yourself in.
Bots and Pluma of Latvia cross well out in front of everyone else, 41.204. Now we're starting to knock on the door of track record territory.
It's a great run for this young team, and I'm excited to see what their future holds. I mean, Latvia has shown that they have strong teams. They have the 6 pros. That's one of the most impressive teams to still be competing and still be competitive after so many years. So they have great athletes to learn from, and it's only going to show for a great future for them.
The only USA entry, Master Turdeman. Tomorrow will be the only day all second half of the season Chris Master has off, because there will be no sprint nor relay. But Master earlier today took part in men's singles, now teaming up with Jason Turdeman, 32 years old. In fact, his birthday was a couple of weeks ago. Turdeman, he's from Berwick, Pennsylvania. Chris Master, originally from the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York, now lives in the Wasatch Range in Utah.
Right, and now Jason has really taken over the Adirondack Mountains as being his home, kind of current hometown. So
and he's very active with the community.
He is, yes. So both of them, it's a great representation for Lake Placid as well. But we're excited to see what they can do today. Chris had some great runs in the singles race earlier today. Once again, keeping it very low through 12. It's going to give extra pressure, but they handled it very well in 13.
Wavering a little in that straightaway before the finish. Kreisel, they've been in the red throughout, and they stay in the red. Second place, a distant second, a tenth of a second behind the young Latvians.
The speed just has not been there for the U.S. team so far this year. It's frustrating, I'm sure, but kind of getting a slower start to the season, just coming back on the second part, skipping out in the first half. There's a lot that they're building towards World Championships.
That's the second time we've seen this year. Jason Turdeman taking a page out of the book of Semen Pavlichenko with that wink to the camera. Why not?
Why not? Yes, so there was a lot of that extra direction in the straightaway. They can clean that up for the second run.
Well, certainly one of the surprises yesterday was the podium performance by Slovakia in the Nations Cup competition. Maciej Schmish, Tomas Vaverček on course now, or just about to be. 19th place in the World Cup standings. Their best finishes, they come off of a pair of 15th place results in the last 2 events.
Right, 6 strong paddles to start off with. That's great to see. And a little bit of a wave through start curve, but they have about 8,000s to work with.
Both of these athletes 21 years old. Slovakia has done pretty well in team relay competitions this year. I believe finishing as high as 6th.
Early entrance into 9 through that labyrinth, and it's very easy to get offline. They're a little bit behind, big skid into curve 12.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard it more than I saw it. They cleaned it up here.
That, I mean, that's so much time there that's going to be difficult to come back from.
Back behind the Latvians and the Americans, 3rd place at the moment for Slovakia. Speeds are about, I want to say about 6-7 miles per hour slower than the men's competition, which stands to reason. They're starting quite a bit lower on the track.
Right, so here off of curve 11, there's a little bit of extra direction, but what killed them was there's a little bit of an uneven roll back there, and then there was a big power skid into curve 12.
Second place yesterday in the Nations Cup one-heat qualifying race was one of the 3 sleds from Germany, Robin Goyaka and David Gam. However, last year, they didn't race last month here in the first Oberhof event, but last year they did, and they had a podium finish.
Hopefully that will give them some good vibes into today's race. I'm really cheering for these guys.
That was actually one of the very few podiums they've had the last couple of seasons where they've had some down results, but they probably have a half dozen podiums in their career, including at the World Championships. Their start is just behind the Latvians. Now into the green.
Right, but they have more potential on the start, I think, but the line through start curve was just a little bit off, and it's so important on this track from this start.
I suspect there's a lot riding on this weekend's competition because with the final 3 events, including the World Championships, there is a 4th German team that on balance has done better than Goyaka and Gam this year.
Right, they had a fantastic exit of 13 and a great Kreisel to bring in a track record.
We knew it would only be a matter of time, sooner rather than later. It is now sooner, as Goyaka and Gam of Germany from the Hochsauerland region near the Winterberg track, they take over the lead midway through this competition.
I think we saw Norbert Locke. His reaction was definitely, okay, we'll calm down. We'll see how this goes. It's great to have a track record from these guys, but I expect it to be broken a few more times before this run is over.
If it isn't, these will be the first run leaders, right?
Right. But I think there's some more time in that run.
Yes, I don't think that limb is that wide that you're going out on. So, yeah, there's a great look at the comparison, and you made a great point during the race earlier today. You watch those heads and how different they can be.
Right, and both teams looked pretty stretched back. It's the doubles teams, when you're trying to match 2 people up, it's a little different than singles, but they've done a great job so far.
Canadian Olympic medalists Tristan Walker and Justin Smith had a disappointing re-entry into the Tour a couple of weeks ago with an 18th in Königssee, but they stayed here the last 2 weeks in Oberhof to train, and it paid off yesterday with a victory in the Nations Cup.
It did pay off, and they're on a new sled for them this season, and they're excited to see the speed that they can gain from that. I think yesterday was a great indicator of just what they can do if they have 2 clean runs.
The 2 athletes from Calgary stay in the green.
Oh, and long off of 13. It was a quick recovery, but that's disappointing.
Well, it cost them everything, Emily, as they had a pretty safe margin. And as you said, a quick recovery. Was fascinating to watch Tristan's reactions. As they hit that wall, he stayed calm, made a couple of little adjustments. Disappointing in terms of time, however.
It is, but to have, I mean, still be within 300ths of Goyaka Gam, who did not have a crazy mistake like that. I mean, that's pretty good. You have to be happy with that, but you're right. Look how calm his face is. And the important thing is they really entered Kreisel still at a good spot, even with the issues down the straightaway.
Now Poland, Wojciech Chmielewski, Jakub Kowalewski. 15th place World Cup results. Their first top 10 of the season came last week in Sigulda with an 8th. That put them into the seeded group. This is the first of 12 now to come of the seeded athletes.
Pretty nice even lines in the top curves. That's important for building all the momentum they need. Oh, coming in, but they just lost all the momentum right out of 6 there. Oh, and early again, this is going to make their job very difficult in 11.
Unfortunate for a team who sat on the podium the last time they raced here in Oberhof in the team relay competition.
It is. I mean, he's working so hard right now just to get the sled down. Once you're off track, you have to drive that much harder, which is cutting that much more ice, and it's really compounding. It's a compounding issue.
5th place behind Germany, Canada, Latvia, and USA. Poland's only sled in today's event. In fact, their only sled on the World Cup this year in doubles. Maybe we've seen one other at one other race.
So this was early on, out of 7. See how they're drifting really far over, early entrance into 8, and then again hit right before 9. I'm impressed that they made it down. There were so many opportunities where they could have crashed, but it's disappointing for these guys. Everyone loves to cheer them on, and they know they have a lot of potential at this track specifically, but that's all gone for this weekend.
Koshkin and Korshunov, the first of 2 Russian sleds in today's event. 4th place finishers at the World Championships last year. 4th, their best result this season last week in Sigulda. And after that Sigulda race, one of their Russian doubles specialists, Yushikov, retired, leaving his teammate Prokhorov high and dry. And so that's one of the things about doubles, Emily. It's not like they can just slot that remaining doubles guy in right away with another teammate.
Right, it takes a lot of time to build the relationship and just the unity on a sled. So it's a big farewell from the sport to Yushikov, and I don't think Prokhorov is stepping away completely yet. I just think it'll take time to build that relationship with another partner.
Clean,
great exit.
Yeah, clean, if not particularly fast at this point, 69.5 miles per hour. No one's hit 70 yet. They're back in 6th place behind Poland. Best speed we've seen has been a 69.8, which 3 countries have put forth, and those are the top 3 right now in the standings.
Right. I would have loved to see this a little bit earlier of an entrance. They were a little late, and that's going to be a sharper peak. And you saw that spray coming from their runners there. So they're losing a lot of time in the finesse of these transitions.
On we go with run number 1, and like Latvia and like Germany, the Italians have 3 that have qualified for this competition. There is their head coach, or their sport director, more to the point, the great Olympic champion Armin Zugler. Here are Emanuel Rita and Simone Keinswaldner. Russia and Austria also brought 3rd doubles teams to this event, but in each of their cases, the team failed to qualify for the main draw.
This sled was the 5th fastest sled in the AC training, and I know in particular that Emmanuel loves this track. He knows this track. He's figured out the rhythm early on in his singles career. He's always done pretty well here, so I think he just has that instinct that a lot of us lack on Oberhof.
Been a very decent season for them so far, with a pair of 4ths, a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th. Now they just have to take that extra step, literally and figuratively, up to the podium.
Right, and he's working a little bit more than I would like to see, just to, if you could have it be a little more fluid, but the lines are there.
4th place, 41.251, and Armin Zugler's analysis of that says it all.
Right, I think ideally luge should look effortless, right? So we saw that there was a lot of effort from Emmanuel just keeping the sled on line. Ideally, you would be able to do all that work in the curves and have the transitions just flow. So he's missing a little bit of that, even though the lines were definitely within range.
Question comes in from Craig, who hits on a topic we've discussed off and on over the years, and that's when a sled goes off a line, do you actively think about how to straighten it out, or is it just instinct and experience?
It's a combination of both. I think a lot of the times you know it's coming. So everything snowballs in our sport. So if you have an issue in one curve, you usually have to back up 2 curves before that to figure out why you had the issue. So in that case, you're actively trying to get ahead of it again. But sometimes when it goes quickly in a split second, you just have to react.
Great point. Ivan Nagla, Fabian Malaya, the second of the 3 Italians. Back-to-back Italian teams.
Very early entrance into start curve.
They not only train luge year-round, but Emily, during the summer, this pair likes to go rock climbing and mountain biking together.
What a great place to be in the world.
And the Dolomites, yeah. Just gorgeous in northern Italy.
Once again, they're just a little bit off. They seem to be a little bit more fluid than their teammates who just went down, but their lines are just a little bit behind. So it's the trade-off. What's going to be faster? I'm not sure.
A lot of left and right sled action, but staying off the wall. Let's see how it translates below. It does with a track record 41.063. It's Italy over Germany and Canada. The Canadians, Emily, are in third, just 0.07 of a second back. Can we place a number on that mistake and how far they'd be ahead right now had they not had it?
Ooh, I mean, I would say maybe 1,500.
Okay.
So, yes. And that's being conservative. It could be much more than that.
Well, we'll see in run number 2 if they have a clean run.
Very nice. A little bit long exit there, but see how they try and hold it as much as they can to that right wall to really get that early entrance into Kreisel. Well done.
16 through, 8 to come now from Oberhof, Germany. Run number 1 of the doubles competition, stop number 7 in the Eberspeche FIL Luge World Cup. Russian Olympic silver medalists back from the games they hosted in 2014, where they took silver in the team relay. Alexander Denisov, Vladislav Antonov. There's been a lot of shuffling amongst Russian teams over the past decade in doubles, but these two have been the fixtures.
There has been, and I expect there to be more in the future. It's not over yet. It's a pretty good start curve, but they were very early onto curve 5. See if that scrubs their momentum into the labyrinth or not.
Still ahead, we have Austrians, more Italians, more Latvians, and of course the biggest rivalry in all of World Cup Luge, the 2 German teams, Egert Beneken and Wendel Alt, still coming up from the seeded group.
Very high in 13. That was a late entrance. They just shot right up. They did a nice recovery there in the straightaway, but this run was just off basically from top to bottom.
You know, we have seen so many come to that near side of the exit of 13, hit the wall or hug the wall, and they were on the exact opposite side of the track.
Right, with a later entrance, it really just shoots you up, and with a sharper peak and an earlier peak, then it's going to bring you out from the curve really before your time. So they handled it well. A lot of the times when that happens, there's a lot of extra pressure because you're a little weightless, but they handled it very well.
Italy leading over Germany and Canada right now. Those are the top 3 with 7 remaining. And back to the top we go. And often in the sport of World Cup Luge, you will see singles athletes become doubles athletes if it's not working out singles-wise, or if they believe they're going to have a better result in doubles, and that is absolutely the case with these two from Austria, Yannick Müller and Armin Frauscher.
It is. I mean, the Austrian men's singles program is basically the definition of depth at this point. They have so many athletes who have podiumed and have the potential to podium week after week. So these guys teaming up for doubles, it's a new challenge, and it definitely is a challenge. We talk about how you have to get in sync with another person flying down an ice track. I mean, it blows my mind. But they've done really well so far. They're seeded athletes, and it's a pretty clean run so far.
Very well, to be sure, with 2 podiums, another 4th place finish, tapping the wall on the long straightaway before the finish Kreisel.
That was kind of bizarre. Typically, you don't see the issue happen that far down the straightaway.
You can always count on Rennie Friedel, the Austrian team leader, to give us a little hand signal on what he thinks happened over the last 40 seconds. Friedel, a former world championship medalist from Germany, now coaching Austria. And there are German coaches all over the world, Emily.
Right. So coming off, they slid off, but typically it looked like they had it under control, but that was such a strong change of direction to that right wall. You don't see it very often.
Tell us quickly a little bit about it. Your newest coach for Team USA's senior team.
Our newest coach?
Robert,
yes. Sorry, yes, so this season feels like it's been 3 seasons in one, to be honest. So, yes, Robert has moved from the junior national team to our head senior national team coach.
Also a German. Now we have Egert and Bennekin. They have won many World Cup overall titles in a row, but they are trailing in the points this year, some 60 points or so behind the Austrians, who are up next, Stoy and Kohler. Here are Tony Egert, Sacha Bennekin. They're also the defending world champions.
They have so much experience on this track. This was their original home track. They are quite comfortable here. Interesting takeoff of curve 7 there, but it's setting them up for a very easy labyrinth.
You have to go back 10 years to find the last time they did not finish in the top 3 in the World Cup overall standings, although by their own admission, they've underperformed at the Olympic Games with just 1 bronze medal. Track record 40.889. If I don't sound surprised, Emily, it's because I'm not.
I'm not either. That's, I mean, these guys have shown that they are very capable of going fast on any track around the world. They had, what's interesting to me is that when I think of Oberhof, I think of swinging curves off and like off of one curve into the other. They were, look how abrupt they come off of each curve. They really just make it into like a mini straightaway in between a lot of the curves. And typically, you don't think that's how you would build speed on this track, but once again, they defy the odds.
They have the ability to do that. That's a great way to put it. A mini straightaway, where for everyone else, it's a quick transition. Egert and Bennekin out in front. They won the race earlier this season here in Oberhof, but they still trail these two, wearing the bib proudly, Stoy and Kohler of Austria. And really the only reason they're still out in the lead in the World Cup standings is because they've been steady. Aside from their 3 victories, they've had nothing lower than 7th. They've had 3 other podiums, where the Germans have each had at least 1 train wreck along the way.
Right, but consistency is key when we're talking about overall titles. So it's very impressive that they have held the lead and they've maintained great performances on so many tracks.
This Austrian pair now has 7 World Cup career victories.
This is a pretty sloppy run through there. They were very early to 11, long off of 11, and it's just a little choppier than I would like to see out of this team in particular.
Speed faster than the Germans, time slower than the Germans, but by how much? By 1/1000 of a second, faster than the blink of an eye.
It really is. I mean, to come down within a thousandth of another sled, that's unfathomable.
Hey, this is going to be a fun run number 2. It's going to be a little tighter, I suspect, than the men's singles competition was earlier.
Right, you get a nice shot of how in sync they are with their paddles. And here, both sleds are, see, look how much earlier Eggert Benneken is on the curve. That's what you want to see on these upper curves. It gives you more of an opportunity to make smoother entrances and exits.
A little post-mortem discussion with Coach Rennie Friedel. The Austrians are through. Austria has been so strong in doubles luge with Olympic medals over each of the last 3 Olympic Games. And Italy, of course, has a great Olympic reputation in doubles as well. Gold, silver at the Lillehammer Olympics. Here's the final of the 3 Italian teams. Ludwig Rieder, Patrick Rasna.
We might see a start record here. These guys are capable, and we do.
Good call. You took my job away from me. I'm the one that's supposed to project those. Nice job, Emily.
These guys are so fast at the start. They've been fast starters way back to when they were juniors competing as well, and to see them maintain that as they are getting older in the sport is great to see.
Top 10 results in every race so far this season. Can we see a third sled within 100th or so down here at the bottom? It's going to be tight. They've fallen into the red. Yeah, they lost a lot of time, 1/10 of a second. They are in 3rd place.
Right, but when we compare, I mean, that Stoy Kohler and Eggert Benneken, we know that the sleds that they are on are incredibly quick. So to see Rieder Rasner come within 1/10 of them is great. I think it's a fantastic spot for them to be in this race.
Well, there's another look at that start. As you said, Emily, they've done it better than anyone this year in the doubles discipline.
They have. They slid off a little bit out of 13. They could have carried that pressure straight to the straightaway, and that would have given them a little bit more. But to be within 1/10 of these other sleds, I think this is a fantastic spot.
Final 3 sleds now. Gudramovic and Kalnins were going to have to improve quite a bit from their last outing here in Oberhof if they want to be in this hunt with the Germans and the Austrians and the Italians, because they finished 19th in the race last month. And they're only in this superseded group simply because they've been very strong the last couple of weeks. They had a 6 on their home track in Segula last week.
Pretty good start for them.
Clean, not particularly fast.
Right. They look good on the sled. This team is one where there's so many variables in this sport. A big skid there, though. There's so many variables, and sometimes pinpointing which one just needs to be elevated a little bit more to find that, and it's a huge jump that you can make. So it's so technical, and it's maddening.
4th place, not bad, especially when you consider the 19th that they finished in last month, which I mentioned a moment ago. They still got another run, of course, and we still have 2 more sleds here in the first heat, including the 2-time defending Olympic champions from Bavaria coming up next.
Look how in sync their heads are, though. You can tell that they're an experienced team by how little difference there is between the top man and the bottom man's heads. Pretty decent exit out of 13. They could have held it a little bit more to Kreisel, find a little bit more time, but overall that wasn't bad.
That's Coach Norbert Locke, and these are his 2 prized Bavarian pupils in doubles luge. The 2 Tobys, the Bayern Express, Tobias Wendel, Tobias Alt. They actually have 4 Olympic medals, 2 in doubles, 2 in team relay, 2014 and 2018. They've had a top 5 result in every race this year, except here in Oberhof, where they finished 18th. And as a result of that, they trail 2 other teams in the World Cup standings.
It's not often that you get 2 World Cups on the same track in the same season this far apart. So this is really an opportunity for them to find kind of vindication in a sense.
Well, when they had to postpone or move those events from Asia and North America, they came to the European tracks. And it was really a question of what tracks had the availability and the track time. And as a result, Innsbruck and Oberhof, along with Königssee, got the double headers.
They're really pushing the pressure through 12. Great exit there.
The 2 Tobys at 70.3 miles an hour. Will there be a third team sandwiched in there? They take the lead by 0.07 of a second. It's Germany, Austria, and Italy. Those are the top 4 right now, with our final sled still to come in Oberhof. Things stand to really tighten up with the World Cup standings.
They do, and after such a disappointing race here earlier in the season, to come back with a run like that, they made a statement that they are one of the top players in today's race.
40.817 on a cold day, cold afternoon here in Germany, with the temperature about 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Now the brothers from Latvia, the oldest athletes in today's competition, 35 and 37 years old. They've won a trio of Olympic medals over the years. They're 4-time Olympians all told. And their best World Cup results have been, over the last 2 seasons, their first 3 victories ever, including last week in Sigulda.
Right, they're riding a high from last week. So a lot of the times that confidence translates into a great result right after that. We'll see if they can pull it off, although the competition is really tight between, I mean, the top 3 sleds are there, but then there's only a 10th behind that, so it's tight to make it into the top 5 right now.
The brothers from Latvia, really beautiful exit as they approach the finishing Kreisel, taking it to the finish in 2nd place.
Wow.
We have saved literally the best for last, with 4, or actually the last 5 sleds are the top 5 in the standings.
Good for them. I think that to be able to carry the momentum from last week to this week is so great to see. This is going to be a very exciting second run.
And actually, Emily, it was the last 6, what they call the super seed, the ones whom on paper you would expect to be in the top 6 are in the top 6. It rarely does work out that way.
Right.
And that's a testament to some degree of these track conditions. It's a cold day, but Ice Meister Andre Becker has done a great job of keeping this course in good shape from start to finish. Only 100th of a second separate the top 2, Germans and Latvians. And then another Germany sled in 3rd, the Austrians. The Italians with a great showing as well. Goyaka Gam, the 3rd German sled, perhaps on their way to their best result in a couple of years as they sit in 8th place. Walker Smith, also in the top 10 for Canada, and you figure they could move up 3 or 4 positions. The Americans are showcased by Master and Tournament in 14th place. And once again, everyone had a finish time. We're perfect for the day so far, Emily.